by Petros Kazuyo and Eddie Chikami. Zifa are confident they will stage smooth elections this year, with the soccer mother body insisting yesterday that they would be guided by the constitution as they take steps to hold the polls. Zifa President Philip Chiangwa left stresses a point during a press conference while his deputy Omega Sibanda looks on. The association will outline the elections roadmap after their annual meeting slated for February 17 in Harare, where Congress is expected to ratify the new electoral committee that will be tasked to oversee the election season. Zifa, through Vice President Omega Sibanda and board member Finance Philemon Makana, yesterday set the tone for activities that will characterize the 2018 calendar of events, which will culminate in elections for the board. Makana and Sibanda addressed the media in the capital, where they took the opportunity to clear the air on a number of issues pertaining to the manner in which they are administering the game. By virtue of being the country's flagship sports association, Zifa are always under the spotlight with their elections a major talking point in and outside the borders. Makana, however, said, contrary to popular belief, Zifa were not compelled to hold elections in March, but would ensure they stage the polls inside 2018. It has emerged that what is key is that the elections are held in the year on which the cycle falls, with the actual dates being a mere issue of semantics. Makana said it was not possible to hold the polls in March since the electoral committee had not been ratified by Congress, a constitution requirement that would then pave the way for them to commence their job by overseeing elections of all affiliates. Once established, the electoral committee would need at least 6 months to set the motion for the polls, which means that unlike the tradition of March elections, this year's elections are now set for the end of the year. Both Sibanda and Makana stressed the unity that prevails in the board that is led by Philip Chiangwa. We may fight or argue during board meetings, which is natural, but what is important is that when we come out of those meetings we are united. This is why we have a board that has not been characterized by firings and suspensions of board members, Makana said. The election roadmap will be finalized at the AGM. That's when the electoral committee will be announced and ratified. The roadmap is going to be discussed then, and if you go to the electoral code, it explains how the electoral committee works. The minimum has to be 6 months after the election of the electoral committee, because they need to be in existence for a minimum of 6 months before they start conducting any election. So if they are going to be set up in February, it means there have to be a lapse of 6 months. So the elections cannot be in March. Our understanding is that the elections have to be in 2018, not necessarily March. People are just saying March because traditionally the elections are held in March, but the Constitution doesn't say March, but it has to be 2018, said Makana. The current board has been in office for 2 years after they took over the reins from the Cuthbert Dube leadership in December 2015. Makana believes the current executive has done well in keeping the ship afloat, and were only following the dictates of the Constitution. Before they stage their annual Indaba, Zifa are expected to hold an extraordinary general meeting on January 20. The association's audited accounts are expected to be tabled at the EGM, with the 2011 audit, which revealed the association's bankruptcy, expected to dominate the discussions. Zifa were expected to hold their AGM late last year, but they missed the date because the delegates had not received the mandatory 90-day notice. Makana said that backlog had prompted the request for an EGM. We are required by the SRC, where we are registered as one of the sports bodies, to give them annual audited accounts before the end of each operating year. So by principle we should have handed such before the 31st of December, and that has not been done because we can only do so after the accounts have been ratified by Congress. It's the same with FIFA, it's the same with CAF. So these are statutory obligations that we must meet, and it's a constitutional requirement. So we are actually trying to fulfill our statutory obligations by pushing for the EGM so that we can quickly deal with this, said Makana. The Zifa finance man said the association was mulling plans to service its debts, which are in excess of $7 million. Makana said the current executive had done its best under trying conditions after inheriting an association that had been blacklisted by auditors as an ongoing concern after it became incapacitated because of huge debts. The Harare businessman said the association has done well to stop the debt situation from going out of hand. There is a plan on the debt situation. We are working with stakeholders, government included. So at this stage it will be premature for us to say much, except for those that we felt were very urgent, which we had to facilitate and fund from our own pocket, as said IFA. But the rest we are working with stakeholders to find permanent solutions, said Makana. ZIFA, who were declared insolvent by the Sport and Recreation Commission earlier in 2015, have found themselves having to fend off a litany of litigations as creditors battle to attach whatever they could from the few properties the association had. The Herald